Hello and welcome to Friday Sessions from Paal15. In this podcast, we bring together the brightest minds from across the business to discuss the burning issues in the world of business technology and data. Whether you're a hyperscaler, an SI or an ISV, we'll be chatting through the challenges and opportunities that matter the most to you. My name is Matt Gray, and today I'm joined by co-founder and CEO of Paal15, Maarten, and partner Werner Moison. Good to have you with us, guys. How are you doing?
Great, Matt. All good. I'm based in Norway, and there has already been some snow here, so happy times.
Nice. The days are getting dark pretty quickly out there, I guess.
The dark ages.
Yeah, happy Friday. No snow here, but rain in Amsterdam. So great to be on your show, Matt. Happy to be here.
So thanks for joining us, guys. Today we're going to be talking about partnerships, and there's been a real recent wave of partnership announcements throughout the technology industry. These big partnerships are really strategic. They're incredibly important for both service providers and the hyperscalers who make up these partnerships, but it is quite difficult to launch them successfully. Really, all parties need to consider what it is that makes their partnership unique in a partner-led world. So maybe let's jump in with the first question here, guys. Why is it so difficult to launch a partnership?
Typically, it has to do with a lot of unclarity. These partnerships typically get announced at fireside chats or in big media press releases, and Microsoft is partnering with Accenture or with Telstra, but then that doesn't mean that everything is already known to the people within the organization. So they struggle. Well, what's the objective? What does it mean for customers? What does it mean for ourselves, for our propositions we launch to market? So there's a lot of unclarity, although the CEOs agreeing on it and pushing this out apparently means it's very important. So taking care of some of that unclarity is probably one of the things which you need to do before launching any of these partnerships.
Yeah, and I think what we see a lot is, like you said, right? So the CEO announcement, it's often high level, right? So they talk about goals, they talk about what they want to achieve, and they talk about how they're going to go innovate. And like you said, right, it's then, okay, how are we going to then make it practical, right? What are we actually talking about? So what kind of differentiators is party one bringing to the table? What kind of differentiators is party two bringing to the table? And how can you actually sort of build a story around the partnership so that it becomes clear, A, what is the value of this partnership, right? What is the synergy? And then B, how is this partnership different than other partnerships, right? You mentioned Accenture. Well, obviously Microsoft also has partnerships with other systems integrators, right? So why is that partnership more unique or better or different for customers than, for example, a Microsoft plus Capgemini or a Microsoft plus TCS? Or there are so many of these partnerships, there are so many of these announcements, and then particularly for the rest of the organization, you need to clarify, but also for customers, what is unique about it? How am I going to benefit? And what's in it for me? What do I need to change? Right. So, quite a lot of complexities around such an announcement, I would say.
Yeah, so there's lots of moving parts and lots of audiences that they need to kind of get the message out to. Where do they need to start?
I guess you want to start at the alignment of the organizations themselves. So these partnerships, they can be complex. It's not just so there are simpler partnerships, right? Like a Microsoft or an Amazon partnering with a Vodafone or Telstra. But then there's also much more complex partnerships where it's like, hey, Microsoft partners with Adobe together with an Accenture, and Avanade is in the mix, and then you end up with 4 different types of organizations which probably all have their own look at that partnership, and then without alignment, where do you start? So step 1 would be, okay, what's the goal of this partnership? What's in it for every one of those those partners? What does it mean for customers? What does it mean for the departments within those organizations? How should they collaborate? So starting with the goals and objectives probably is the most logical way, and from there you go into operationalizing it. And I think, well, what's the proposition? What's the go-to-market? So operationalizing such a partnership is typically the part they need a little bit of help with.
Yeah, and especially where you see sort of difference in what the original business model of the company is, right? So if you, for example, look at Microsoft, right, they provide in a lot of cases a technology suite or a technology platform, whereas then, for example, a system integrator is hopefully picking up that platform and building it into their consulting practice, right? So from a Microsoft point of view or technology partner point of view, they would always talk about the great elements of the technology, whereas then the other partner would talk about, okay, what is actually the business outcome of my consulting practice, right? So merging these two things together and then finding a balance in, okay, but what is then unique for example, a customer that we already both work with, or existing to one, new to the other. Yeah, that is also pretty complex, right? And like Maarten mentioned, right, that operationalizing it for salespeople, for marketing people, for delivery people, yeah, that is often the hard part, right? Because the default mode would be, hey, I'll go back to what I'm used to do. And that is just, yeah, my practice. I either work in a technology team, or I work in an industry team, or I work, whatever team, right? Doesn't really matter. But yeah, you need to make sure that if there's a partnership and you are sort of partly responsible for also selling a partnership proposition, that you need to understand, hey, what's in it for me, and what should I change in my story? And that is often, yeah, where at least we see the best outcome if you start there.
And there are so many types of service providers and service partners out there in the world. Does it mean that that's always the same challenge that they're facing with this partnership, or is there differences there in the ways that they can set up these partnerships?
No, I think there's huge differences, right? So there's so many different type of partners. Take a system integrator, the difference between a system integrator or between an advisory firm, their position within their customer base is also very different. Typically, these advisory firms, they come at the strategic level. They talk business problems. They have access to business decision makers. They work on long-term strategical goals. Then a partnership with a technology company is one way of leveraging part of a tech solution. It's not the main thing they push to market. Whereas with system integrators, they come from a technology side. Tech is their thing, so they will talk to a very different type of target audience. So depending on the type of partner you have, also and the way they're structured, probably objectives change, and therefore the way a partner looks at success changes, and the whole dynamics within that space changes. So it's for sure there are differences.
Yeah, and like you said, right? Is it a partner that focuses on a full business transformation where, let's say, tech is a part of, or like with this system integrator where obviously the tech transformation is more the entry point, or smaller services partners where a smaller part of the technology stack is the entry point, right? And how they go to market, right? Is it an industry-led organization, right, with very much deep knowledge and deep expertise, for example, in manufacturing, or is more of a horizontal partner which has broad tech capabilities and knowledge, but is not necessarily the industry expert? So the starting point of what is partner one, what is partner two, and optionally is there a third or fourth partner involved, very much determines the approach, right? And very much determines how you want to frame and talk about such a partnership.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and part of it is also proposition, right? What's the partner's ultimate proposition, and how does a piece of technology sits in there? And then I guess what I try to say is like, hey, if you're more advisory-led, more consulting-led, and then you're going to execute that piece of advice or that piece of consulting, and you build on top of a certain technology, there's a very different way of looking at it. And hey, we're technology-led, which type of technology can we start implementing, and what type of problem sits there? That's what we see a lot. And at the same time, also, these partnerships, they're used for various purposes. So customers, obviously, is one. But a lot of things we see also that through a partnership, a partner can influence the perception. And I guess one of the more obvious ones is you have a lot of really big system integrators originating from India. So take, for example, TCS or Infosys. And I guess the old perception of those type of companies was like, they have a lot of resources available to help you out. And it's like the hands part. Whereas more and more, they use these partnerships also to position themselves as more strategy houses and consulting houses. So taking a different position in the market, and they use these type of partnerships sort of to leverage that and land that and launch this type of reposition. So in general, everybody has some sort of their own way of success and their own way of how they should execute the partnership. And it's not always because of the technology. It's also, hey, there's some sort of, the partnership is a mean to an end to change some bigger things.
Yeah. Yeah, that cultural / messaging element is actually very interesting, especially if you look at what is the sort of tone, how do we actually talk about, for example, these partnerships more in the UK or in the US or in Australia or northwestern part of Europe. And then how do we actually talk about these kind of things, for example, like in India as the example. And what does then happen if you're going to partner with a company from one geo and a company from the other geo, right? What is then the sort of the common tone of voice? And I think the example you gave, right, where in a lot of cases the Indian SIs are more sort of modest, and they actually talk about how great they are in execution, right? It's a safe pair of hands and that kind of stuff. Whereas I would say the Accenture type of companies, they would be more like bold in statements and like, man, we have the best consultants out there and the strategy part is our thing. But obviously the Accentures, they have a lot of execution people as well, and the sort of TCSs of this world, they obviously have a lot of expertise on the consulting side, right? So that is a very interesting element in, trying to describe a partnership, right? Trying to describe the benefits for certain customers. What is actually that tone of voice? How do you talk about it? How are we going to address certain differentiators? How are we going to address certain benefits for customers? And that is also sometimes a bit of an overlooked element, right? But that cultural piece is for sure, very important.
Yeah, very important indeed. Well, thank you guys. That's about all we have time for on this Friday session. Maarten and Werner, thank you again both for joining us today, sharing all of your insights on the issues of partnerships.
Thanks, Matt, and have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Cheers. See you next week.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please do like, subscribe, or follow the Paal15 Podcast channel on your platform of choice. And for more insights and expertise from our team, or to find out how we could help your business overcome its biggest challenges, head to paal15.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.